So in this video, let us understand what is the queue data structure. Okay, it is almost similar to the stack data structure. So the only thing is it follows the FIFO principle, that is first in and first out. Okay, so the first one which is coming in, so is the first one to go out. So that is the only difference when it comes to stack. So stack uses a LIFO principle, that is last in first out, but queues, when it comes, it follows the first in and first out. Okay, so this will also use a linear data structure. All right, so of course a queue also could be implemented using arrays, and the only thing is it uses different methods. Okay, so in stacks we use push and pop, but here we use enqueue and dequeue. Okay, or onqueue or dequeue, so however you may pronounce it. So the best example of a queue, you know, right, people standing in a line, you know, to buy something. This is a very big problem in India, right? So this is one of the practical example. But when it comes to technical example, you know, the asynchronous task handling. Okay, so the other tasks has to wait unless the previous task has to get completed. Okay, so there are, we can use like various technologies, like such as message brokers like RabbitMQ, all that technologies, okay, which you implements a queue under the hood. Okay, so again, queues very simple. So let us understand by solving an example using a queue. Okay, so first we need to implement a queue data structure, like a custom queue. Then we initialize the class and then use the methods like onQueue or dequeue, and to check if the queue is empty or all that. Okay, so for now we can just see an example of how we can reverse a string using a queue data structure. So let's consider this example where we need to reverse a string using queues. Okay, so we can just use the reverse function on strings, right? So we are not allowed to do that, but in interview, let's say they gave you a problem like to reverse a string using queues. Okay, so how would you do that? Okay, so let us understand how can we do. So what we just need to do is we just need to run a loop for every string, but in the reverse order. Okay, so we need to start from the last element of the string and then move on till the first element. Okay, and keep adding those elements to the queue. Okay, so first is the starts the exclamation mark, and then the character D, L, and it goes all the way up to the H. Okay, so all of this will be in the form of a queue. Okay, so this is still in the form of queue, but we need to put this back again to a string. Okay, so again what we do, we just run a loop inside this, and for every character we just add that to the result string. Okay, so that first comes is the exclamation mark, and then D, then L, and it goes all the way up to H. Okay, so this is how you can reverse a string. I know this is we are running two loops, so this is not a good thing. So but in case in the interview they say you to implement a queue and then reverse a string, so you should be able to do that, right? So this is one of the examples. So let us implement a custom queue, and then we can solve this particular problem to reverse a string. So let us get started by implementing a queue class. Okay, so let's call this queue, and inside this class we just need to do the constructor. Okay, very simple, just like we did implemented for the stack. It's just some slight changes which we need to make. So this dot items, and set that to an empty array. Okay, so this will be our queue. Okay, so we can also use this like a stack or like also like a queue, and let's use a particular method to add a element to our queue. Okay, so that particular method is called as enqueue or onqueue. Okay, however you may want to pronounce that. So let's say enqueue and pass the element. So this is the element which we need to add to the queue, so we can just say this dot items dot push and pass in the element. Okay, so this is just like pushing an element to the stack. Okay, so we are just adding an element to the queue. So now let us go and create a queue instance and set this to new queue. Okay, and so we can just pass in inside the queue like queue dot enqueue, and then pass in something like let's say John. So John is in the queue. Okay, so once I save this and run this file, so let's console log the queue itself. Alright, so you see that one item has been added to the queue with the name John. Alright, so this is working, and if I add another item to the queue, let's say Peter, and save that, you see that Peter is again added to the queue. Okay, so this will be the order. So like the first person who will enter the queue will be at the 0th index, and the following people will be after that. Okay, so from 1 2 and going on from there on. So this is a method to add an element to the queue. So let us create an element to remove an element from the queue. Okay, so in stack we used to remove the last element by using the pop method. Okay, so here we just need to do it slightly different. So let us say dequeue, and we don't need to pass in anything. So let's first check if the queue is empty or not. So we can just say this dot items dot length. If that is a falsy value, then we just need to return from the function saying that queue is empty. All right, and if the queue is not empty, then we need to just remove the first element from the queue. Okay, so that we can do it by returning this dot queue dot shift. Okay, so this is a method on which are introduced in ES6. Okay, so where we can remove the first element from the queue. Okay, so this should be items. Okay, so this will remove the first element from the queue, okay, from the array or anything. So now if we try to use this method called queue dot dequeue, so the John should be removed from the queue. Okay, so let's check that out, and yeah, so you see that only Peter is left behind. Okay, so we had initially a queue with John and Peter, so John is now being dequeued, so we have only Peter. So yeah, this is the two main methods, and again the rest of the two methods, like to check the queue is empty or not, so we can just do that. Okay, so we have already implemented that in the stack. Okay, so these two things, so we can just use these within our queue as well. Okay, so I just don't want to waste much of your time. So this is a method where we just check if the items within our array is 0 or not. Okay, so this will give a true or false value, and then this method is just to check the size of the queue. Okay, by this dot items dot length. Okay, as simple as that. So we can also just try that. So queue dot is empty. Okay, so if I just save that, and now you should be able to see we also need to console log this, and we get false, right? So because there is something in the queue, so if we again dequeue this, we should be getting true. Okay, so we don't have anything in the queue because we have called dequeue 2 times and 2 of them were there in the queue. Okay, so also we can just check the size of this, so and try to remove this dequeue methods, and we get the value as 2 because 2 of them are there within our queue. Okay, so yeah, this is the basic implementation of queue. So let us see an example how we can use this particular queue class to solve a particular problem. Okay, so this is a problem where we need to reverse the string with the help of a queue. Okay, so the queue already we have implemented within this class, so we just need to create an instance of that. So let's call this queue and set this to new queue. Alright, so our queue has been initialized. So now what we just need to do is run a loop across this particular string and keep on adding elements to the queue. Okay, so let's run a for. So this time we need to run from the last element up to the first element. Okay, so -1. Okay, so we are going from the reverse, right? So I should be greater than or equal to 0, minus. So, and what we just need to do is add the elements to the queue. So queue dot enqueue, and then pass in the string at the ith iteration. Okay, so once our strings have been added to a queue, so that is not the final answer, so we just need to dequeue from that and then store it within a string. Okay, so we can just create the string by initializing to that an empty string. So let's call this reversed string and set this equal to an empty string. So now we just need to use the dequeue method and store every single element from the queue to the reverse string. Okay, so let us put a while loop that while queue dot is, we need to check that as long as it is not empty. So let's put is empty and put a not operator. So as long as it's not empty, we just need to keep on adding to the reverse string, I mean concatenating. Okay, so let's take the reverse string and plus equals the queue dot dequeue. Okay, so once that's done, we just need to return the reverse string. Okay, so that's done. Let's now test it out if we are actually getting it. So just a small correction, this function needs to be called, which I actually forgot. So now let us try to run the file. Okay, so we get the string in the reverse order. Okay, so we have implemented the custom queue with the help of this particular class, and we are successfully reverse the particular string. Okay, so of this hello world. Okay, so that's it for this video, guys. So I'll see you guys in the next one.